Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how you can get some of the features that are in the iOS 5 beta on your device now. So if you're not a developer and you don't really feel like bending the rules, but you still want these features that are in iOS 5 early, there's a way you can do this. So normally you wouldn't be able to get the iOS 5 beta on your device yet, unless you're a developer of course. But for this, all you're going to need is to have your device jailbroken. And I'm not going to go into that here, there's plenty of tutorials. So most of the new stuff in iOS 5 isn't really new itself, but it is new to iOS. But there are many App Store and Cydia alternatives to these that work almost the same, and in some cases actually give you more features than what iOS 5 will. So first off, one of the big new features that Apple described in iOS is the lock screen camera. So basically when you're on the lock screen and you double click the home button, you'll get a little camera button and then you can launch camera right from there. Well, if you go to the Cydia store and download Camera Buttons, it's a paid application. Once you go to your lock screen, you'll be able to hold down the button of your choosing. You have a couple different settings. So I'm going to hold down the up volume button, and it's going to launch the camera for me. So there you have the camera running. And now I also have it set up that I can push the up volume button to take a picture, just like you can on iOS 5. So there you can see I'm taking pictures. The next thing, and probably the biggest, is a notification center. And this is a feature that Apple's really been heavily promoting in the betas. And basically, you get to see your notifications from the lock screen and you can swipe to see all of them. And you can also pull down from the top to get them. And they all show up in a list. Well, of course, in Cydia there is an alternative that is very much the same, and it's called Mobile Notifier. And to get this, it doesn't, if you search for it right when you jailbreak your device, you're not going to see it. What you have to do is you have to add a source. And that source is right here. And rather than try to say that source, because it's very strange, you can just see it on the screen here. And all you have to do to enter that source is go to the Manage tab in Cydia, click on Sources, hit Edit, hit Add, and then type in that source right here after the HTTP, and then click Add Source, and it will be added. And then from there, you can go in and you can see Mobile Notifier. Now I have this installed, and basically it acts pretty much just like Notification Center, in that if I get a notification on the lock screen, so let's say somebody replies to one of my tweets and I'm on the lock screen. Let's try this out. So right there I just replied one of my tweets with a different account, and you can see it comes up missed notifications, and if I tap on this you can see all my notifications and a little drop down, and then you can see here it's Twitter, and they will scroll up and down in a list here, kind of like in the beta. And it also works similarly to iOS 5, where if I get, like, let's say a Twitter reply while I'm just doing anything, so let's say I'm just sliding around here and I get a reply, you'll see it at the top here, and you can see all the icons move down and it says Twitter. I can tap on this and it gives me the information about it, so that's real handy. And then I can just kind of dismiss it, or I can go right to the app. Now, you can't pull down from the top like you would in Notification Center. Let's say I get a tweet, and it comes up here, and let's say I'm not around, and it just dismisses on the lock screen, or if I tap this button right here, it'll go away. And now when I double tap the home button, you can see missed notifications. I can clear all of them, and then you can see my mentions as well, and I can tap these to go right to them, so that's pretty handy. And the next big thing that Apple talked about was iMessage, and this is a thing where you can send text messages from the iPod Touch as well as the iPad. Normally you wouldn't be able to send text from the iPod or the iPad, and this kind of lets you do that, and it kind of lets you group text between your iOS devices. So in the App Store there are plenty of alternatives to this, and one of them here is textPlus, and this is another application that lets you text between iOS devices, of course, as well as other phones and things like that. So you're not limited directly to iOS devices. And the handiest part about it is that it does work on the iPad and the iPod Touch. So you're not limited to the iPhone anymore. And that, I think, is the biggest feature that a lot of people are looking for if they have an iPad and they want to text from it, but they can't because they have to use their iPhone. So this is handy, and it works on all devices. One thing that Apple highlighted with their iCloud service is Wi-Fi syncing. So pretty much the idea behind it is you don't have to plug in your device anymore to your computer and sync it through iTunes. Whenever it's connected through to power, it will automatically sync. And there is a application just like this in the Cydia store. It's called Wi-Fi Sync, and it's pretty much exactly the same. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate it for you here because it only works on the iPhone and the iPod Touch first, second, and third generation, as well as the iPad 1. So I'm out of luck here with the iPod Touch fourth generation. But it allows you to sync over Wi-Fi, and you don't even need to be plugged in. And another thing that Apple announced is picture editing right from the Photos application. So any pictures you take, you can automatically edit. Now there's tons of different photo editing applications in the App Store, but the best one I found is Picture Effect Magic, and it lets you do a lot of the things that Apple showed off with iOS 5. I can do different effects, and there's tons of different effects. I can crop the picture, and these are all very similar to how the photo editing in iOS works. So you can see, maybe I want that. I can save that, and let's put on a focus light effect. Now these effects are things that Apple doesn't even allow you to do. So you have more options with this than the official iOS way. Apple also announced Newsstand, which lets you buy and look at magazines on your device. And there's an application called Zinio. It's also in the App Store. And it kind of lets you do the same thing. You can see here I have 3 different magazines. These are kind of the light edition. But you can see I can swipe through, I can look at my magazines. They're all stored in this central hub here, and I can look at the shop, and I can look at all magazines, and I can buy and download magazines right from here. Another neat thing that Apple included in Safari is called Reading List, and it lets you save sites for later to read. And there's an application in the App Store called Read It Later, and you can see I have a reading list. It's almost identical, and what I can do is I can install a bookmark tool in Safari that all I have to do is when I'm on a site, I click the bookmark and it automatically adds it to my reading list. And I can do this on the desktop too with a plugin so that this is always synchronized between your devices. So there you go. There are some different alternatives to the iOS 5 features so you can feel like you're running iOS 5 on your device right now, even if you're not a developer. So I hope you found this video useful, and thank you for watching.